This meeting is being recorded.
Very good afternoon, all of you. So this is the BRSI Global, which is Series 8. So to begin with, I request Professor Sudhir Sopori for the welcome address.
I'm really thankful to Professor Dhawan for having accepted the invitation of BRSI to deliver this lecture under the Global Lecture Series program. I think this lectures have been going on since the beginning of this year. And this is, I understand, is the 8th lecture which will be delivered by Dr. Dhawan. More about Dr. Dhawan we hear from Vinod, but I think he's one of the top scientists of this country who has made immense contributions in different areas, also as an administrator, and his contribution in institutional building have been enormous. I'm really happy that he agreed to deliver this talk. And the title of his talk is very interesting. And actually, I look forward to listening to his lecture. Back to Vinod for formal.
Thank you, sir. Professor Alok Dhawan is currently Director, Center of BioMedical Research, Lucknow. Previously, he served as Director, CSIR, Indian Institute of Toxicology Research, Lucknow, and Outstanding Professor, Biological Science Academy of Scientific and Innovative Research in New Delhi. He also served as Director, Additional Charge of CSIR Central Drug Research Institute, Lucknow, from December 2017 to July 2018. He was the Founding Director, Institute of Life Sciences, and Dean, Planning and Development, Ahmedabad University, Gujarat. He has played an important role in building institutional excellence in higher education and national laboratories across the country. He obtained his PhD degree in biochemistry from University of Lucknow, India in 1991, and was awarded DSc degree by the University of Bradford, UK in 2017. He has visited several countries, both for conducting research as well as to deliver lectures at scientific meetings. Professor Dhawan established a field of nanomaterial toxicology in the country. He set up the facilities at CSIR, Indian Institute of Toxicology Research, which provided an enabling ecosystem for technology development for scientists from several institutes, including CSIR Lab, IITs, etc. Here, he also trained scientists from several EU countries in the field so that they could establish nanomaterial toxicology in their respective countries. His pioneering work in the area of toxicology of metal oxide nanomaterial, such as zinc oxide and titanium oxide, has been published in international peer-reviewed journals. And his work has been extensively cited, more than 12,500 citations, and he has such index of more than 53. And he has a publication of about more than 123 reviews, book chapters, 7 patent, 6 copyright, and has edited 11 books. So with this short introduction, I request Professor Dhawan for the talk on nurturing science, knowledge, and innovation ecosystem to global sustainability. Professor Dhawan.
Thank you so much, Vinod. And let me at the outset give my profound thanks to Professor Sudhir Sopori for, in spite of his being under the weather, he has been able to join and share his blessings on me. Of course, I should like to thank Professor Ashok Pandey for giving this opportunity to share my points of view regarding this innovation ecosystem that is taking up very briskly as far as the country is concerned. I should also like to thank Professor T.P. Singh, who's been a mentor to all of us, and he has taken time out to be with us. I'm really grateful to him. So with this, I would like to share the slide, and if you can just confirm that the slides are visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So as I say, the title is Nurturing Science, Knowledge, and Innovation Ecosystem for Global Sustainability. I'll just dwell a couple of minutes on science, knowledge, innovation ecosystem. So I always say, especially to young faculty and students, we are always told, think outside the box. That is the one statement that we always hear. And the second statement we always hear is sky is the limit. And both of these statements I don't agree to. One, that if you say think outside the box, you're defining the perimeter of the person out of which he or she has to think. And the second, if you say that sky is the limit, I beg to differ, because I feel that thing, then you don't require evidence for that, right? So प्रत्यक्षम की प्रमाण जो प्रत्यक्ष है उसके लिए प्रमाण की जरूरत नहीं. So if I define, that is how I came up with this title. If I defined sky with, or if I sort of spell sky with SKY instead of SY, then I think I'm happy, because then I'm nurturing science, knowledge, innovation, which is limitless, which is just a path of excellence throughout. And that is what allows us to not only probe the ecosystem, but also look at where we are now. And I think just before we started, we were very rightly saying that now I think the climate change is hitting us in the face. So now we have to take remedial measures, and that also comes through science, knowledge, and innovation. So I think it could be science that has been with us for ages, but more so modern science that we now consider, and how we can ensure that the ecosystem is globally sustainable. It cannot be me or you, one country versus the other. I think the current sort of pandemic taught us that it cannot be one country versus the other. It has to be all countries together. We are in it together, and we are a global village. So I think that's how it's going to go. The way I've structured my talk is I'll dwell on some of the, because my entire life has been in CSIR. So I'll dwell on what we were able to achieve in CSIR over these years, and how CSIR ecosystem has been able to come up with a lot of technology that have helped the country becoming sustainable. And on the other hand, we'll also look at some other issues that are there, especially with respect to the current institution where I am, and the kind of development that has happened in the country overall with respect to the science, knowledge, innovation system. So as you're aware that now at least the countries are very concerned on how they will achieve the sustainable development goals. And each one of them, it's not only, let's say, climate change or the other, but I think each one of them, be it poverty or hunger or global health, you name it, and people are worried as to how they're going to achieve it. Life below the water, everything that you see requires a lot of hard work. And not only hard work, I think all countries have to come together and ensure that we have sustainable methods, be it energy, be it anything that you want. Now the plastics that we are dwelling into, again, something that we were privy to just in a meeting, that the Food Safety Standards Authority of India has permitted the use of recycled PET for packaging of food as good as the original one. And countries, India is also starting, but the other countries have already started. So I think at every level, the science that we know, the knowledge we have acquired over centuries or decades is now getting sort of more and more crystallized towards how we are able to achieve these goals that you see on the screen. Some of these I've highlighted because these are the ones that I'll be dwelling into as we move forward. So as I said, CSIR has been the harbinger of science, technology, innovation in India. It was one of the first, and this is just the a snap of the headquarters that you see. But again, unless you look at everything differently, I think the innovation is. So I always say that Council of Scientific Industrial Research, or CSIR, can also be looked at from the point of view that it is a citadel of scientists for doing innovative research. And I think that's how I look at CSIR from a distance or from being inside it. And some of you might be aware, some may not be aware, that CSIR was the first scientific organization in this country in 1942. And then came ICAR, and then ICMR, and so on and so forth. And in fact, some of the major organizations such as ISRO and DRDO were actually, for DRDO, I think some money, or D1, I think the money came from CSIR to begin the organization. But ISRO definitely was something that actually CSIR was asked to look into, and then approval was given. And the most recent of them is, of course, the DBT, which came up in 1986. But as you see this timeline, you will also observe that India has been nurturing this ecosystem very diligently. And although people say that the money for science is dwindling, but I think as long as you're doing good science and you're doing science for society, the money is still there. It might have reduced a little bit, but I think I would put this way that the competition has increased, and so the number of people who are looking for that kind of money have increased as well. So perhaps uh, we are not keeping pace with the number of scientists or the number of students who wish to pursue science. And so therefore, I think it's very important for any country, and let alone any country, India, which is now the fifth largest economy, to ensure that we keep nurturing science and technology right from grassroots level, right from school level, all the way up to where we are as scientists in different institutions or universities for that matter. I think that's equally important that we nurture science and innovation ecosystems in the universities, IITs, and so forth. So I think it's very important, and those kind of things are missing on my slide. That you have a lot of science that is happening in IITs or ICERs or it's university system, but I sort of restricted myself to the systems that I'm more acquainted to. If you look at CSR per se, we are pan India. The ones in blue are by and large the institutions that are related to biology, and that's what BRSI is doing. So I thought I'll just label them in blue so you can see. And just for you to understand this ecosystem is the only one that is headed by the Prime Minister. That's the only society in this country which is headed by the Prime Minister as the President and the Honorable Minister of Science Technology as its Vice President. So it shows the importance of science that this government has, or rather all the governments have had in their mind. And that is how the Prime Minister has always been the head of CSIR. Now, if you look at what were the drivers of science technology in India, I think especially if you look at CSR and others that came along as time went by. First, in early 30s to 50s when we gained independence, I think people were looking at more of individual excellence and sort of trying to see how they could build capacity. But then I think soon they realized in the decade of 50 and 70, science is going to be a major issue. And as and when the technology was denied to the country, we started developing our own technologies, developing or innovating our own systems. And therefore, in the decades of 1990 onwards, the IP took the fore, and IP generation and global competition became the mantra of the day. And now in this current Amrit Kal, as they call it, I think global S&T leadership is what we are looking at. We are already ahead of several countries, and we need to foster this more or nurture the science and technology innovation ecosystem even at the grassroots level, so that we can actually become the powerhouse of science technology in the world. Again, coming back to CSR, I think the way CSR is now working, one, between the institutions and among the institutions, not only in CSR, but outside of CSR, DST, DBT, etc., ICMR. So we are looking at collaborate, cooperate, and co-create. I think that is the model that we are looking at. As I just explained, sky versus sky, absolutely no way you can deny the fact that you just have to innovate. And that's how it's going to be, either for basic science or for translational science. And the one thing that I firmly believe that you have to take risk. If you have to nurture science and innovation, you have to take risk in certain areas and try to see if you can develop newer areas as well. I think that the country is now poised to ensure that we can take enough risk, and that has also been very well sort of documented and has come out in a sense of entrepreneurship. And you have more than 70,000 of these startups that have come up, and more than 100 unicorns have come up. So again, these are things that are coming out of risk-taking of the youth, the enabling ecosystem that the government has put in place, and of course, the science and innovation that is behind these different kinds of startups that are coming. If you look at the CSR science technology innovations that are there. You look at environment, health, drinking water, food, housing, etc. And this has been really remarkable over the years. Of course, there's another side which is more towards the metallurgy and mining, etc., which I'll not dwell into. Request the person to kindly mute their mics if it is possible. So if you look at CSR addressing the national challenges and carving out global S&T niches, right from the very beginning when it was formed, the idea was to get into nation building. Right from coming up with the indelible ink, which was used now currently in almost 35, 40 countries for the elections. There are very small examples that I'm giving. There are loads of examples like this. In self-reliance, if you look at the fact that India is perhaps one of the few countries that consumes buffalo milk rather than cow milk as much. So CSR was able to come up with spray-dried buffalo milk, and because of the fact it was not getting possible, but CSR came out with the technology, and that is how the Amul spray-dried milk came out, infant formula came out. And the same was true for self-reliance in the 70s and 80s when there was technology. CSR came out with the first tractor in the country, and that also sort of was helpful in the green revolution, and so was this baby food helpful in the white revolution. And then, of course, as we went into the green revolution, there was also demand of pesticides and fertilizer. And again, CSR stood up to the challenge, and we were able to develop a lot of these pesticides and transfer it to the companies. Then, as we move forward, I think in terms of computers, in terms of aircrafts, in terms of medication, a lot of pharmaceuticals have come out of CSR. Streptokinase came out. Recently, jet fuels, and I might have seen the social media flooded with the kind of MOUs that are happening. But if you see a lot of the work that was required, CSR has actually been able to very constructively contribute. And this has only been possible because it was nurturing. I keep repeating this for this lecture, that it was very important that CSR kept nurturing science, knowledge, and innovation throughout. In fact, at that point in time, we did not take enough credit. The fact that we had developed so many products that were there in the market, even the ceramic tiles that we have in our houses is the technology of CSIR. So I can go on and on with CSR technologies that have actually transformed the way we live today in the country. So I start with some revolutions that happened in this country, and they are primarily driven by people, but also driven by very high quality science and innovation that happened. So if you look at Green Revolution, at that point in time, we were actually dependent on a lot of our grains coming from abroad, especially the US. And it was the sheer grit and determination of Professor Swaminathan, also known as father of Indian Green Revolution, that he brought in the high-yielding varieties of wheat, and then subsequently further developments happened, and wheat and rice both came up in a big way. And now India exports not only self-reliant in terms of grains, it is exporting grains to several countries. So these are examples of how good quality science and innovation was nurtured all through. And it's not necessarily it was happening in CSIR, but all across in different areas. May I request the organizers to please mute everyone else if it's possible. Then, of course, the White Revolution. And as I mentioned to you, CSR was also part of this White Revolution by converting the excess milk into powder milk, which could be used later on, when the milk was not as much. And this again was not only the fact that at that point in time we did not have enough milk, but because of Dr. Varghese Kurian and his sort of vision of Amul, this came about, and now we have so many of these kind of conglomerates that are there across the country. And in fact, although India is the world's biggest milk producer, actually UP is among the topmost producers of milk in the country as of now. So that also shows that how uh, people who were driven by their passion and good quality science behind it were able to change the way we look at the country now. And of course, they were supported by the then governments. Then came a technology two revolution, that was the Sun-Fire Plan. And this again was something that not only we were looking at land as an option, but we were also looking at sea and other marine animals as an option to ensure that we get good quality food, nutritious food. Food security was definitely an issue, so you could get enough protein. So it's essentially to do with fish farming, and the Department of Fisheries, Government of India actually went ahead and launched this drive. And now we're also looking at a blue economy, to be honest. So that again, uh, our country has not only become self-sufficient in the different kinds of fishes that we are having, but a large amount of these good quality fishes and other marine animals are actually exported. Then, of course, came the pink revolution, where we were looking at, again, different practices and technology that came into poultry and meat that has enhanced the quality of meat that we get, but also the shelf life and also the hygiene. And currently, India is now fourth in the world in terms of meat production. So in each of these, I'll not dwell into great detail, but what I'm trying to hint at is here that in different decades of this country since independence, there's been a push depending on the different aspects as and when required or the priorities arose, that these different revolutions happened, and each of them have actually catapulted, as Professor Mashelkar says, not leapfrog, but actually pole vaulted India into positions that are top in the world. So I think it is here for us to see that how biological sciences and biotechnology has been given a tremendous push. Although the Department of Biotechnology came later, but I think biotechnology per se, or the biological sciences per se, were given a lot of push since the beginning. And agricultural sciences and biological sciences, you can see how well they have performed and have made this country self-sustainable or Atmanirbhar. And more recently, CSR launched an aroma mission in 2016, of which to which I was also privy. And one of the crops that they decided to grow was lavender, especially in Jammu and Kashmir, because the land there was apt for this crop. And within no time, several thousand hectares of land was cultivated with lavender. And these lavender slicks or the plantation was supplied by CSIR. And now it has been named as the Purple Revolution. Throughout the length and breadth of Jammu and Kashmir, you can see this lavender grow. And I think it has increased the farmer income almost 4 to 5 times. And so as also one instance, which I can share with you, that there was a lot of poppy that was being grown near Lucknow, from where I belong to. But in the period of time, the Central Institute of Medicine and Aromatic Plants, is the CMAP Institute in Lucknow. They developed not only agrotechnology, but also good quality planting material for mint. And that is how they transformed that entire region from a poppy growing region to now a mint producing region. And at one point in time, India was importing mint oil for various pharmaceutical and other uses or applications. But because of the CMAP technology over the years, almost 2 decades, I would say maybe a little bit more, India has become one of the biggest exporter of this and also the biggest producer of mint oil in the world. So I think these are the things that I feel very proud of that they have been done. And these are just small examples that I'm sharing with you, but there's so many more technologies in the field that have actually done wonders. And especially those who are from India and are listening to from within the country. There's one spice that we use very often, hing, in our day-to-day cooking. And you'll not be aware that hing was never grown in India. It was always imported 100% imported. So now the Institute of Himalayan Biotechnology in Himachal Pradesh has actually been able to get heme cultivars, and they have now been able to grow them, multiply them, and supply them to the farmers. And so now it has become a crop of the country. So like this, several other crops have become. Floriculture is another mission that CSIR launched, because of which the farmers are getting. And when I say floriculture, it is just not that you get flowers and start growing them. It is a lot of science behind this, how they improve the varieties through selection, how they ensure that end to end the entire value chain is established, so that when the oil, etc., essential oils come out, they're getting sold at a good rate, not only in the country but also abroad. So I think these kind of revolutions, as I shared with you over a period of almost 6 to 7 decades, have done wonders for this country. And if you look at even now, I was just going through the data before coming to you. In 1960s or so, maybe 50s, 60s, the average lifespan in India was around 40 to 42 years. And in US and Japan, it was around 70 years or so, 60 to 70 years. Currently, as of 2021, the Indian lifespan is approximately 69 years. And that of the US, I think, is around 74, 75 years, and that of Japan is around 80 years or more. So I think that clearly shows how science, knowledge, innovation has been nurtured over the years, because of which technologies have now come to the fore. They've become more and more affordable, and because of which, the quality of life, the quality of food that we eat has improved. The amount of food that was available per capita has improved tremendously. So at least people have or can afford to have 2 square meals a day. So all these things have come only because of the fact that science, knowledge, and innovation have been nurtured over and over again through these decades. The cane sugar revolution happened, and currently India boasts to be the second largest producer of sugarcane in the world after Brazil. And I'm again privy to the Indian Council of Agricultural Research and their institutions in Lucknow, especially the Sugarcane Research Institute. They have developed very high-yielding varieties, and they keep developing new varieties that are then transferred to the farmers. And not only that, they also, along with that, improve the agricultural practices. And now they're coming up with new processing technologies. So you get more crop per drop, but also that is agricultural practice, but also you can get more sort of sugar out of the cane and more juice out of the cane. So all these things happen. As I said, the entire ecosystem has been developing around our agriculture as well as other industries. If I look at pharmaceuticals, which I think has played a major role in the fact that we have been able to survive this long and our health has and COVID was a good example where the entire world was kind of scared as to what will happen in India, and India showed the resilience only because of the science that it was doing at that point in time. And not only in the laboratories, but also equally good science was happening in the companies or the private sector or the corporates. So I think both of them stood up to the challenge and the occasion, and we see the results now that India was perhaps the best managed in terms of COVID. So now, in terms of pharmaceuticals, I think India is known as the pharmacy of the world, especially in terms of generics. India ranks third worldwide in terms of the production by volume. And especially for generics, I'd like to say, and also for innovator drugs, that CSR has played a major role in this generic pharmaceuticals that have come. And again, just to share an anecdote that for those of you who are not aware, that the Central Drug Research Institute actually came to Lucknow because of the King George Medical University that already existed at that time, King George Medical College. And the vision was that we should have the Drug Research Institute next to the medical university so that the drug development can happen at a faster pace. So I think we have come up with new terminologies in terms of talking about innovation and ecosystem, etc. But I think it was already existing in the minds of the polity, the think tank in those days as well. And that is how the entire ecosystem has now developed. More recently, this bedaquiline fumarate, which is a drug to treat multi-drug resistance TB. This came out from Johnson & Johnson, and it's part of the World Health Organization list of essential medication. And why I've put it up as one of the examples is that it would cost somewhere close to $30,000 in high-income countries such as the US for the entire treatment of about 6 months. But Johnson & Johnson then decided that if it has to eradicate or be part of the eradication of tuberculosis, so they should also take responsibility for that. And so therefore, they actually transferred technology to a company here in India itself. And that has brought down the cost from $30,000 per patient for 6 months to $350 for a patient for 6 months. And so now this, the bedaquiline manufactured in India is actually getting sort of transported or exported to other low-income countries. And same was true for AZT, which was an anti-AIDS drug, where Cipla came forward along with CSIR, IACT, and they were able to bring down the cost almost 100 times for the cost of this anti-AIDS drug. And that was very, very helpful both in India as well as in Africa. I think now it is news. Earlier, it used to be only the domain of scientists, but now I think Covaxin, Covishield, these vaccines are a household name, and rightly so. I think salutations to National Institute of Virology of ICMR as well as Bharat Biotech, who brought out the first indigenous vaccine called Covaxin. And later on, Genova has recently come up with the first mRNA vaccine, which is indigenously developed and only third mRNA vaccine to be approved in the world. More recently, I think Bharat Biotech has also come up with the intranasal SARS-CoV-2 vaccine. That again is a very new paradigm in which we are now working, and this will be very, very helpful, not only but also for. When you talk of and one wonder why I put ISRO, but I thought it'd be prudent to see that how innovation ecosystems develop. So at one point in time, ISRO was sending satellites for various reasons, but very soon they realized that since end of the day, we have to see how we can serve the nation. So they figured out a plan, and then subsequently, as they were sending satellites, they would utilize those satellites to map, and not only map, but also to forecast weather patterns, crop production, different kind of water resources that are available, and so forth. So if you see right from 2011 till now, almost 2016, there have been several satellites that have been launched and by ISRO that are now used for agriculture, for other collecting other data that is very useful, and also for telemedicine. So I think these are the things that are happening at a very fast pace in the country, and we feel immensely proud that this kind of an ecosystem has been nurtured, where we are talking of interdisciplinarity, that ISRO is talking about agriculture and medicine. I think that itself speaks volume of the ecosystem that has got developed over the years. And as I mentioned, it's only because of the constant STI interventions that India has now become the 5th largest economy in the world. In terms of the Industry 4.0, I think initially we were feeling that we are a bit left out, but I think we are now coming up again in a big way. The interconnectivity is happening, machine learning tools are coming up, real-time data is getting channelized through AI models, both for agriculture as well as for healthcare. If we look especially at the food industry, and I'll share some examples of that, environmental sustainability, biomedical systems, and healthcare, all of this has seen a tremendous input from Industry 4.0, and primarily from automation as well as Internet of Things. Uh, so if you look at the food industry challenges, the first thing that comes to mind is that we have almost 15 agroclimatic divisions and 20 agroecological regions. So how do you handle this kind of diversity, especially when you have to transport, products from one place to the other? So there is now a global demand for food sensors. So what they are saying is that not only we should have sensors to detect if there's any leakage, but also is there a possibility to detect freshness of the product? Can we, based on the freshness, demand higher value for the product? Temperature, time sensors, and these were things that we were looking into basically for fruit juices and other stored, that is stored in a controlled environment in controlled temperatures, and also for the vegetables, if they can be stored in controlled temperatures, and if there is a possibility to have sensor that will inform you if it has not been stored in a particular temperature. And meat is another example where the temperature is very important if it has to be stored over a long period of time. So this kind of things were happening, and so therefore CSIR decided to come forward and launch a mission program on food and consumer safety solutions, of which I was the mission director and CSIR IITR was the node authority. So essentially, we're looking at various technological solutions from farm to fork or from seed to stomach, and essentially looking at delivering technological solutions in for food safety. We had institutions that were solely, for example, Central Electrochemical and Engineering Research Institute in Pilani was there, Glass Ceramic Research Institute, the CSIO in Chandigarh, Indian Institute of Chemical Technology. So you'll see not only of course, CFTRI was there, but also institutions that were very diverse in their work profile, looking at engineering solutions, became part of this program. And we are looking at several work packages, milk and milk product, beverages, edible oils, post-harvest technology, and so on and so forth. And of course, digital food safety portal. And just to give you a sense of the timelines, this was just an 18-month mission. So we are looking at missions that the ISRO does, and their missions are anywhere between, 1 year to 3 year time periods, and they're able to deliver. So we thought, why not we take up the challenge and we should try to figure out a plan that we should be able to complete. Just for you to see that how, again, this was a good example where CSR nurtured this kind of a thought process. And within this span of 18 months, we got 20 patents which are filed or currently in process. There were 2 post-harvest technologies, 5 sensor devices, 20 kits, food quality assessment methods, and so forth that were developed within these 18 months and were delivered to various companies, and still those technologies are getting transferred. And right, as I mentioned, right from having RFIDs or sensors at where the material gets collected from the farm, all the way throughout the transportation food chain to the consumer. We looked at various aspects of this food chain, or this sort of, I wouldn't say food chain, but the transportation of food, and where all these sensors would be very useful. And one of the cases in this would be the fact that we use Tetra Pak, uh, uh, and we generally open the Tetra Pak, and if you have a 1 liter Tetra Pak, you consume some amount of juice, and then you keep it back. So we were looking at whether this juice actually remains good for a long time, and how would one be able to figure out. So we have now been able to develop a sensor that will be part of the packing, and I think IITR is in discussion with companies, especially Tetra Pak, which can actually make this part of the. So from the outside itself, based on the metabolites that are created, one can actually figure out whether the juice is worth drinking or not after a period of time. The same was true with milk, and this was a product of Siri. The major issue that we were facing was contamination in milk or adulteration in milk. And the issue that the major dairies were facing was the fact that once the milk has been mixed, it is very difficult to figure out which consignment of the milk, or from which village the milk was contaminated or adulterated. So our engineers got their heads together and they were able to develop a sort of device that can scan 14 to 15 different aspects of milk, which tells you whether the milk is adulterated or not. And it was then released by the Honorable President of India on the CSI Foundation Day in 2017. And later on, we also got a handheld device. So there were two devices that were now. So I think more than 1,000 dairies are using these devices now, and which is ensuring that the quality of milk that we get is good. And these are the kind of timelines that I mentioned to you, right from the first model that was developed all the way to the one that we had a handheld device that was released by the Honorable President. And now looking at Industry 4.0, it has now been connected through Internet of Things. And now we can actually monitor the different dairies on which the produce is getting, or the milk is getting collected, and the quality of milk of each of the dairies from where this milk gets collected. So I think it's a very seamless way from a point of view of white revolution, where only the question was to have enough milk, to now looking at quality of milk, to now looking at the fact that in real time you can assess the quality of milk and see whether the milk is worth processing or not. So I think this is a remarkable progress that has happened in this country, and these are all sort of original technology that are coming out in this country, and at a very, very affordable price. And same is true for, as I mentioned, food safety and security. If you look at Industry 4.0, government is also helping to ensure that we have maximum outcomes from these industries, and the quality of food that comes, especially in terms of packaging, in terms of labeling that is there, is very good quality. And as part of the we were also able to create a database for food safety, and almost 3,000 files are part of that database, which is maintained by CSIR IITR in Lucknow. We are also part of developing guidelines. So it's not only doing research and innovation, but also ensuring that a good, vibrant sort of ecosystem for regulation is also there. So when it came to the novel foods and food additives, CSR IITR was in the forefront of developing guidelines for FSSAI along with others. Same is true for environmental sustainability. I think CSR has done tremendously well along with other institutions, of course, in terms of bioenergy and waste management. Professor Ashok Pandey is one of the names from this country, globally recognized. And this was a case in point where there was a large plot of land that was contaminated with HCH. And we decided that we'll put our heads together along with other universities and institutions who had collected over a period of time microbial consortia that would be helpful to remediate this dump site. So this was allocated to us, and over a period of time, we are now in the process not only for doing microbial remediation, but also looking at other things such as plants, etc., that can be grown on it to ensure remediation. This was a very interesting project that was taken up near the time when Kumbh was happening. And these are all part of what we have done for the HCH, and you can see a whole truckload of the bacterial consortium has been brought in to be sprayed on the site. I'll just come to that Kumbh thing in a minute. This is another area which we thought is a good idea to look into, because by and large in the household, the water that comes is just sort of contaminated with microbes. So it is not fit for consumption only because of microbial contamination. So we developed a device at IITR which can safely disinfect water, if I may use that word, and it would provide water at the cost of about 1 to 2 paisa per liter. And this is something which is you don't require any chemicals in it. And it can be run by solar. So we were able to actually transfer this technology to two people, but unfortunately, both of them, with technology transfer took place in 18 and 19, and then came in COVID. So although they did make the device, I think they are now struggling. So they will perhaps take it forward again with renewed vigor. And this was also provided the Golden Peacock Award because of the sustainability, and it was not using electricity. You could run it on solar power, and it can be scaled up to any length. Along with that, we also developed certain devices for managing biomedical waste. So instead of doing autoclaving, you could actually run a microwave, and this would not be only cheap but also very quick to do. And for pulp and paper industry, for example, we were able to again get some microbial consortia. We developed a lab scale reactor, which was about 100 liters, and then we scaled it up to 2000 liters. And that reactor was then placed in one of the pulp and paper industry near Lucknow. So I think that is going forward. Again, if you look at the advantages that I mentioned about the satellites that have gone into the air, the advantage that we get is the SUFFER program of the Ministry of Earth Sciences, where you are able to get online information about the air quality, but also forecasting that happens. This was that happened. This was near the Kumbh that was going to happen in Allahabad, and IITR was approached to monitor something like 250 or 260 drains that get into the various tributaries of the river Ganges. And using technology and using Internet of Things, we were able to actually do it on a daily basis till the time that the Kumbh was over. And I think I was thrilled to bits to see that how technology has enabled, and all these technology that you see was developed indigenously. So we used drones, we used apps that were developed, and we could actually not only follow the way river is meandering over the period of time, but also capture data in real time, which was sort of geotagged. And so there came forward as far as data collection and water quality was concerned. Then we got this app developed for UP, and the people could actually, not only the companies who were providing the technology, but also the people who were involved at the government level were able to follow, using the Internet of Things, they were able to follow the progress of how this was getting. As I mentioned, we were able to do real-time measurement of several, almost 14, 15 parameters at the site itself. And that led us to the next level, which was actually monitoring the entire river Ganges for 2,500 kilometers. One of the only institutions that was on the boat with Army, Navy, and Air Force, apart from Wildlife Institute of India. And they were monitoring the wildlife biodiversity, and we were looking at the quality of water throughout these 2,500 kilometers. So this is remarkable as far as I see from my point of view, that over a period of time that I've seen myself in the past maybe 30, 40 years, the way science has improved, the way the younger scientists are able to take risks and bring up new technologies, I think that is remarkable. Same is true with Industry 4.0 in agriculture. I think the way we are now spraying pesticides that were getting wasted, now you have smart sensor-based monitoring system for soil health. For water, you have this, drip irrigation, and same is true for the pesticides. You don't have to unnecessarily fill the pesticide on the field. As and when there is any pest, they now have sensors they can detect, and only there the drone goes and they can actually spray the pesticide. CSR also came up with the Kisan Sabha portal. We have more than 60,000 people on this portal, and that allows the farmer to actually fit into the supply chain see where he gets the cheapest transportation from, and the entire ecosystem is in place. And same was true for healthcare and biomedical systems. CSR chipped in a big way to ensure we get good quality monitoring, smart devices that are there. And if you look at, as I mentioned, one of them was an incubator at IITR. CSR also developed an Arogya Setu app that was part of the COVID program. If you look at the National Health Mission, I think they have a very ambitious program in terms of how there should be one health, in a sense, if I'm use that word, where you can get a test done anywhere in the country, and that can be accessible from any other place in the country. So I think that that sort of process is still on, and I feel indeed very delighted that I'm part of this. I'm on the planet as of now when all these things are happening. That I see India is actually not only a service provider to the West in terms of innovation or in terms of software development, it's actually done wonders for its own people. And this has ensured, along with the good quality internet and satellite connections, a very healthy ecosystem for telemedicine. And I was privy to, again, this telemedicine ecosystem, especially in Uttar Pradesh during the COVID times, where doctors were unable to go but were able to give their view or their consulting to smaller hospitals where the X-rays were available, but they did not have enough pulmonologists to actually look at those X-rays. So I think this is another area, healthcare is another area where I think the Internet of Things and the artificial intelligence is going to play a major role in this country. And again, the and the science behind it has happened all in this country. So I feel immensely proud of this fact that this kind of things are happening in this country. Of course, the way forward is to ensure that all the data that we are creating or generating is secured, and we can use them. We can make the maximum use out of this data. In terms of healthcare, in terms of agriculture, I think more and more IoT-enabled solutions are coming up. So one may not have to actually go out in the field to figure out what is happening. The sensors will automatically tell you what is happening, and based on those sensors, things get triggered off, and you can control them. I'll spend another, maybe if permitted, another 5 minutes to just share with you about my institution, which is again a very unique institution. So I am blessed to be able to serve two very unique or three very unique institutions, I would say. IITR, which is the only toxicology institute in the country, Central Drug Research Institute, which again was a very unique institution in its own right. And at least two of the drugs that I can think of, and one is non-steroidal pill for female contraception, the only non-steroidal pill in the world that has come out of CDRI, and it has now become part of the family health and family planning of the country. And the other one was the anti-malarial that came out of CDRI, that again has become part of the government list of medicines where they're distributed free of cost. So this institution where I'm currently came up as a center of biomedical magnetic resonance, and way back in '99 they started looking at clinical metabolomics, which is now a buzzword in a sense, but they were doing it then. And because they were housed in a tertiary care hospital, they had access to patient samples. And the other point was that they were able to look at these patient samples both for diagnostics as well as for how the disease progression is happening, and also look at whether the therapeutics is working or not. So over a period of time, this was supported by Department of Science Technology, but over a period of time, it became an autonomous center of the government of UP. And we then got a 3 Tesla functional MRI with us, so we could look at cognitive behaviors. And more lately, we had some very good chemists that have joined our institution. And I'm very glad that, as I mentioned, that not only the central government but the state governments are also nurturing scientific institutions now, because they understand science is the only solution forward in the in the 100 years of independence, as India will celebrate in 2047. And our honorable Prime Minister has very rightly said that apart from we hail the soldiers or the farmers, we also hail scientists. So I think the fact that Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan and Jai Vigyan has also come to the fore. And apart from that, he has now put Jai Anusandhan. So with that in mind, I think our leadership in UP has now agreed to convert this Center of Biomedical Research into an institution. This has now been approved, so very soon we will be starting. The land is got allocated now, so very soon this will become an institution. So within a span of about 20 years, if you look at the kind of work we do, it is primarily towards patient care. And if you look at the quality of research, I would say it was remarkable to see that the index came out among government sector in all subjects. In India, we were among top 10, and globally we were 128 among top 200. If you look at the chemistry, we were ranked among top 4, top 5 in the country, and globally we were among top 50. So I think it is remarkable that a small center funded solely by the state government has been able to live up to the expectations of the country and come up with such brilliant work that is going on right now. And if you look at the NMR-based work, we've done more than 25,000 patient samples and over 50 disease conditions. So a huge amount of data is with us, and now we are converting this into devices. Same is true for functional MRI, and I'll give some couple of examples to you. So basically, in an institution, we do basic, applied, and translation research. And currently, the 6 departments that we have are data science, biomedical engineering devices, advanced spectroscopy, biological and synthetic chemistry, and department of system biology. These are very unique equipments in the country. People who are from outside the country, of course, they might be having it, but in this country, we are these the 600 megahertz solid state NMR, where you could look at bones and cartilage and look at metabolomics in that, is a very unique system in our institute. The other is the 800 megahertz solution state, where we look at the of patient samples, and of course the 400 megahertz for chemistry and other work. And we also have a 3 Tesla functional MRI, where we look at neurocognitive and other illness. So just in the past 5 years, we looked at several thousand patients, both in terms of diagnosis as well as in terms of research. And we looked at different disease conditions that you can see on the right side listed here. And just to give you a snapshot, based on the research that we did, we are now able to identify whether a patient who is going to undergo cochlear implant, will it be successful or not? So the plasticity and the connectivity of the neurons in the auditory cortex with frontal cortex, we are able to now come up with the intelligence model. And based on that, we are able to predict. So in just the last 1 year, we were referred to by PGI about 22 patients, out of which we told PGI that 18 of them can be taken forward, and the other 4 we sort of opined that may not be good. So at least the 18 that we had opined would be successful, all 100% were successful. Same is true with ADHD, where we looked at attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And these children, when they were looked, when you normally go to a physician, they are aged between anywhere between 8 to 9 years, and there's only a window of about 2 to 3 years when you can actually treat them. But based on our artificial intelligence model using functional MRI, now we can predict this disease as early as 3 years of age. So that gives a big window to the doctors and the parents and the child to recover from 3 years to sort of 12 years, we have a 9-year window instead of about a 2 to 3-year window. And again, in the last 1 year, we were able to provide our inputs on 13 patients that were referred to us by the King George Medical University, Lucknow. And now, as the government has desired that we are now taking this forward to all the 3 Tesla machines that are available in the state of UP, and whoever wants to train will be have trained and ensure that this capacity more and more we can. In terms of NMR-based metabolomics, we are able to now identify and differentiate between conditions such as sarcoidosis and tuberculosis based on the metabolic profile. We are now collaborating with IIT to convert the metabolic profile into either a lateral flow or a small digital device, which can then be taken all the way out to primary health centers for monitoring. So this is an example of that where we are looking at different sort of metabolites in the serum, and you can actually, based on the markers, able to identify the disease. So I think one thing is very clear from the presentation. Now I'm sort of cooling down a bit. That we need an ecosystem to work, as was mentioned, rather than an ecosystem where it is a person on his own doing whatever he or she wants to do. I think we have to have an ecosystem which is friendly, sustainable, and you've just seen, although there was some controversy over it, but I think seeing the first transportation of cheetahs to India, perhaps a clear indication of what the government of the day wants to ensure that the ecosystem remains viable, should remain sustainable. Since I enjoy taking pictures, and perhaps Professor Ashok Pandey can vouch for it, these are some of the pictures, but I love nature, so I thought I'll just share some of the pictures. And this is what we need to conserve, preserve. We are part of the nature, and we have no right to destroy nature. And I think this is what one should eye for. Whatever we do, we should ensure that nature at all point in time is sustainable. The way we live our lifestyles should be sustainable. The produce that we make should be sustainable. So the different kinds of species that you're seeing on the slides would still be there maybe 20 years from now when somebody else comes and discusses these issues. So with this, I'd like to thank BRSI profusely again for allowing to share my point of view on the science, technology, innovation ecosystem that has been nurtured over the several decades. It may not have been perhaps the Western blots, etc., that you might be looking at, but I thought I should come up with what this country has been able to achieve in these 70 years and how we who sit in different parts of the country are so well connected. And each of us, I would say, let's say Professor Sapori, Professor Pandey, have excelled in their own fields, have not only excelled but ensured that they have nurtured several generations under them, and those generations have further gone and build those fields in the country. So once again, Professor Pandey, thank you very much, and Professor Sapori for giving me this time. I think I took almost an hour, but just to share with you what I had in mind. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alok, for elaborating so much about the innovation along with the nurturing of science which has taken place in this country. Normally, Vinod would undertake this session on the question answer, but since he is unwell, Vinod, shall I go ahead with the question part?
Yeah, please, sir. Please.
Okay.
I'm happy.
So if there are any questions from the audience, you can put the chat box and we can take it up. Or if anybody would want to ask directly, you can.
It was, may I
Yeah, please. Yeah,
few words. I think it was
yeah.
really wonderful to listen to Professor Dhawan. I think he's given us a broad picture of how this science in this country has developed, the role of CSIR and other agencies. I personally have been associated with CSIR in many, many ways, and I know how efficiently and a lot of work which is being done in this organization. Even the current work which you are describing about Purple Revolution, this aroma mission program, I have been monitoring
Absolutely.
that program myself and see
Absolutely.
how much
Absolutely.
work is being done in this particular mission. So although you were talking about the Western blot, we didn't want to see Western blots, but what you have brought out it together, Western, Southern, and Northern all together, So it was not only one blot, but you have put all the blots together in order to show how the science has emerged in this country and where we are moving forward. I'm really, really thankful to you for, especially the younger people would have appreciated the efforts of many scientists, visionaries, and the leaders like you who have been associated with science and technology in this country. My one concern, which always has been, especially in the medical devices, a lot of work is being done. But one thing which is not
Absolutely.
coming up, I had once mentioned also in the Planning Commission, is the kind of high-end medical equipments. Although we are in the business of smaller ones, but we are still dependent on foreign countries, be it NMR, what we are talking about, or MRIs and others. And there is where we probably need to go for self-reliance somewhere. I don't know how this will be done.
So
There must be an
I'll just share with you, sir, especially for NMR. So now we have a unit that has been indigenously developed, and we are headed towards that route now. And at least two places it is getting developed. One of which is, of course, the Andhra Pradesh MedTech zone in Vizag, Visakhapatnam, and another one that has recently got developed, I think, in collaboration with the IT Delhi, if I'm not mistaken. So they have, and I think it was perhaps the Planning Commission that was pushing for it. And you very rightly said that the high-end machines, let's say electron microscopes and the kind of machines that are required for diagnostics, we are still unable to make.
manufacturer.
And that was the reason, sir, that the government of the day has put in a lot of effort in putting these semiconductor, factories. So you can now have chips manufactured within the country, and we don't have to bother about importing them from Taiwan or China and so on and so forth. So I think COVID taught us a lot of these things. And in fact, even in the pharmaceutical sector, sir, we were importing large number of these APIs from abroad. And it was that because of the Planning Commission, that CSR and other agencies got together, and they are now trying to prepare these APIs. In fact, APIs -5 should be prepared in India. So I think large number gone into that, so that we can get self-reliant in these fields as well.
Great. My other concern has been, in CSIR, why aren't we starting with many more institutions? I think the time when CSIR started before independence and some new institutions came up, I think the number of PhDs or the scientists in this country were at a certain number, but now that has doubled or tripled or even more. So the absorbing power of our institutions has not really increased over the years. So I think this is something which we need to look at. Even a small country like Germany has 42 Max Planck institutes. And a huge country like ours has only 38 CSR institutions, although there are many other DBT institutions and others. But a huge country like ours, to absorb our own manpower, which are very, very good new people who are coming up, I think we probably need expansion and not constriction, as sometimes people are thinking about. So that's other concern which
I'll just mention, sir, one thing I'd like to mention here about CSR, since I'm very passionate about it, and you have been an integral part of CSR family, sir. I'd like to share with you, sir, that each of these CSR institutions, if you look at, is a unique institution in its own right. So it was built for a purpose so that it could support a particular industry, a particular area of science and technology. And so therefore it has its own niche. So to then think that, let's say, a central drug research institute will absorb all the drug or medicinal chemists would be very difficult. So I think what CSI does is develops the basic science and technology, hands it over to company, and like other countries, what is now happening, sir, that the companies are now investing, and that's what I said. The startup culture has now come up. So I think more and more people who are getting trained in these institutions are going forward and taking it to the next level through startup culture or through other companies. So I think government sector absorption of scientists might become difficult after a while, but I think the private sector is booming up. So I think that is where our scientific manpower will be required more and more.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So there's one question here that I am currently pursuing masters in genomic science. In my upcoming future, I want to pursue PhD in medical genetics. What are the key thing I need to apply? So and join the PhD in CBMR, and now it's currently being an institute. Okay. Utkarsh Verma. Utkarsh, just to let you know that I think two things. One, that you can actually pursue your PhD in several institutions who are pursuing good quality genomics research. One, of course, is if you want to talk of medical genetics, is IGIB. The other is you have SGPGI Lucknow. You have medical genetics. Of course, you can work in our institute. You're most welcome. You just need to qualify any of the exams, CSIR, UGC, GRF exam, or ICMR, or DBT, or whatever it is. Once you have a GRF, you are most welcome to apply. I will take it forward from there.
Anybody has any question to Professor Dhawan?
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Hello, Sanju. Yes.
Good evening, Sanjay.
Yeah, very informative and nice lecture, sir. And really, we all are enlightened to listen you, right from the green revolution to includes the COVID also, and the contribution of CSIR and other Indian institutions in this area. So really very informative, sir. And what the point Dr. Sapori has pointed out, it was really very good, because the every day lots of new institutions are coming and very good manpowers are coming out. So it is a big challenge for ourselves that where this new mind is going to get absorbed, because the number of vacancies.
Actually, what is happening, if you see, and I think Professor Sapuri would also agree, sir, new private universities are coming up which are supporting science in a big way now. And they're investing heavily into science now. So I think that's another area where you'll find in the near future. And a lot of donations and endowments that are coming from abroad as well as from within the country in private setups that are now sort of pushing the boundaries of science and technology. Because they've understood if they're able to do that, they'll come into the innovation ecosystem, and that knowledge that is generated, you can generate wealth from that knowledge. So मैं हिंदी में थोड़ा सा बोल सकता हूँ, शायद सरस्वती से तो आप लक्ष्मी कभी भी पैदा कर लेंगे, लक्ष्मी से सरस्वती नहीं है. I think that is what is understood not only by the government but also by the private sector. So I think more and more private sector is investing into science nowadays. So these are good times, I would say, for young graduates who are coming out. These are really good days. They should not feel frustrated by what is going around in newspapers.
Yeah, definitely, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else has any question? Any of the audience? Alok, we always ask this question to all our esteemed global lecture series speaker. This is something, which, for example, you have such a vast administrative experience creating two institutes and building up IITR. Everybody all over the world knows about the contribution which you have made. But then doing all that from your beginning of PhD days, how did you think of a scientist, inculcating in you? How did you think that you nurtured it? What were the things you consider today very important from developing a scientific career and what you would like to tell to everyone participating in this event? How do you, what is the message? What are the important things? What are the challenges you faced as a young researcher? And what are the key points which you think must be taken care by anybody who wants to be a good scientist, who want to be a good science manager? Briefly, if you could tell us.
Wonderful. Briefly, is another 1 hour, but nonetheless, sir, I'll try to finish in 2-3 minutes. Let me say with you, sir, with you know, full humility that I have at my command, sir. I had wonderful teachers in school, and I never forget that. Never ever in my life I'll forget. I'll share with you one anecdote, so you'll get a sense of where I'm coming from. Mathematics was my subject that I was very weak in. And in class 9, I went to my mathematics teacher and I said, sir, I might or may not be able to pass my class 10 in mathematics. And mathematics used to be a compulsory subject. Okay. So would you take tuition? That's what I asked him. उस समय मारना अलाउड था, तो उन्होंने मुझको एक चाटा मार दिया. मैंने सर आपने उसको मारा क्यों? बोले एक तो मैं आपको इस काबिल नहीं बना पाया कि आप मैथ्स में पास हो पाइए और आप हमसे कह रहे ट्यूशन पढ़ेंगे. So those are kind of people I was taught by, and I think that is. And then he took almost a month. Every morning I used to go to him. He never told me how to do the question, and that is where you said, "Where did the scientist in you got, fired or triggered?" What he told me is the following, sir. Very simple. He said, Alok, you're between you and the person who scores 100 out of 100. The only difference is that you're not understanding the problem. If you don't understand the problem, you'll never come up with a solution. So the answer will always be wrong because you've not understood the problem. And that is where I made it a point. And for 1 month, I was only reading the question, trying to understand the question, and then coming up with a solution. Ultimately, I passed with good grades. So that is what triggered off the sort of inquisitive mindset, if you may say, or curiosity-driven mindset in me, that unless you understand the problem, how can you solve a solution? How can you come up with a solution? That was one. Second, the fact that I could go up to a mentor or my teacher and say that I'm weak, I think one should understand from within his or her strengths and weaknesses, try to do a SWOT analysis of his or her own and see where you are headed to, what you want to do in life. Because everybody else in my family was a medical doctor. I was the first one, perhaps, in the family to get out of medicine and go into research. And thirdly, I think in the family, I was being very inquisitive. I had lots of questions. At times, my mother would get annoyed. But my dad was very patient and he would answer each and every question. So I think if you have the ability to ask questions, which means that you are cognizant of your environment, what is happening around you. So if you're able to observe around you and ask questions, I think that is where the science begins. And I think as far as the administrative experience or the other sort of institution building happens, I think it is a part of your own way you grow up. I have tried to imbibe from any person means any person. And jokingly, I always say, चोर से ईमानदारी सीखनी चाहिए. आप चोरी ना सीखें, ईमानदारी तो सीख लीजिए. Nothing is written, but everything is well distributed between them. So I think what you can absorb from the ecosystem, the environment in which you're growing up, I think that is important. For youngsters, I would say, please leave your hierarchies and your positions under the table, under the carpet. You are a human being and that's how you should behave. हमसे लोग कहते हैं साहब आप डायरेक्टर, मैंने कहा जिस समय मैं फाइल साइन कर रहा हूँ उसी समय डायरेक्टर. उसके बाद I'm a scientist, I go and mix with people and try to understand their problems. Only then you can resolve them. So unless you meet your stakeholders, whomsoever they may be, at whatever capacity you are dealing with them, you need to meet the stakeholders, try to understand their problems. Only then proper solutions will come outside. And that is what I think people are now understanding, that unless you go out of your offices or your labs and understand what is happening in the community, look at the problem, try to solve them. I think that is how new age scientists will grow up. There'll be more, I would say, society relevant, if I may use that word, rather than producing cellulose, as somebody used to say, for their own self. So I'm not saying fundamental science is bad. It's absolutely wonderful to have good quality fundamental science. but have an eye on what this fundamental science can be used for. So I think whatever is in me is genetic, so I don't claim anything from my side. It's perhaps what I got in my genes. I can't be blamed for it, but I was fortunate to have those genes in me. So perhaps I got the right environment, I would say. So gene environment interaction, as we say in toxicology, was good for me in the positive direction. So I am where I am now. And of course, I had Professor Ashok Pandey, who would always come and have very, very healthy discussions with him as well. So I think I've been very fortunate, sir, to have had seen the who's who of Indian science at very close quarters, be it Professor M.G.K. Menon or Professor Manju Sharma ji, anybody you talk of in this field. So, P.N. Tandon Sahab, Professor Sapori Sahab, P.P. Singh Sahab, Aap. So I think I have just learned from everyone, and as the last sentence, I would say, as an individual, I always say I was dumb yesterday. So every day there's a learning for me, and today has been another one for me, of course. So I think as long as your mind is open and you're willing to absorb things from outside, you just keep on going. That's how it should be.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alok. I can share with everyone that the principle of learning by doing is a commonality between Alok and me, and of course, many of us there. And one of the things which most of us still very well remember and miss Alok is that his being so simple and so nice human being, be it a watchman, the security guard, be a attender in a laboratory, or be a scientist. On personal matters, on personal ground, Alok behaved with everyone in a similar manner, and that is what is his perhaps the biggest essence of his being good human being. So with this, I would like to conclude. Over to you, Professor Sapori, for concluding remarks. Then if Vinod or I will come to thank Vinod.
I think we all enjoyed this lecture, and hopefully next time we'll get a chance to meet him in person somewhere.
Yeah,
I look forward to that, and wherever it may be. And as usual, earlier days. So all the best to you, and you have still a lot to contribute to this country, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate your time, sir. Thank you.
Over to you, Vinod.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Dhawan. Very, very informative talk. You have covered almost all areas of science, knowledge, and innovation ecosystem in this country. So thank you very much once again. So I also thank Professor Sudhir Sopori, Professor T.P. Singh, Professor Ashok Pandey, all of the members who joined in this meeting. The next lecture in this series would be by Professor Samir Khanna from University of Hawaii, USA, in the month of October. So till then, we meet for the next lecture. Till then, bye-bye. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.